Hi everybody, welcome back to Cosmic Owl Astrology YouTube channel. I am Louise Edington, your wisdom weaver and cosmic owl, and I'm here today to talk to you about the next full moon, which is at 16 Aquarius. But before I do, I want to really thank everybody on this channel who leaves me thumbs up, likes and all the things, and leaves me comments. I do try and at least heart all the comments. At the moment, my life is crazy. And that brings me to the other gratitude I have. I'm so grateful for all the people that have ordered signed copies of my new book, Ceres in Astrology. Here it is. And I would just like to say that I am working my way through mailing them all out this week. I had more than I expected. The mailing was delayed because I didn't realize how long it would take the books to get here when you order author copies. And then I also have to pack and ship each one myself. So I'm getting there, and I will get through them all, and I will get through them all this week, and you will have them before August the 12th, which is the official publication date. And I will also be emailing out the gift PDF to everybody that has ordered signed copies. Okay, and when the pre-order link is up on Amazon, the hard copy is now and the Kindle is now. If you drop me an email, louise@louiseedington.com, you will also get that PDF. Okay, and I will also be asking you to give me reviews, but I will email you the how and where to do that. Whew, all of that. Okay, on we go with this full moon. Now, I do find out there in the internet world, there is a tendency for every full moon to be like huge. Well, it's a full moon, but it is the full moon before we head into eclipse season. The next full moon is a total lunar eclipse, and the nodes on this full moon, the moon's nodes by transit, have moved to 18 degrees, which is where they will stay right through eclipse season. I use the osculating or true calculation of the lunar nodes, which means they kind of move around a lot. And this means that when we're in eclipse season, which new and full moons close to the ecliptic, which is eclipse, which is where the nodes are, which is where they are in the sky, a point. That means they appear to sit at the same point. It's just the astronomy of it that makes it that way. And it's one of the reasons I use the osculating or true calculation of the nodes. The other one, if you want to learn a little bit of how I do astrology, is that I have lunar nodes that change signs if you use the mean calculation, which is the average, or the true calculation. My true nodes are at 0, Aries and Libra, and my osculating or mean nodes are at 29, Virgo and Pisces. And I really relate to the Aries Libra nodes, but I was convinced by Stephen Forrest, who uses the mean calculation, that both ways could work. So anyway, but there's a little astro lesson for you. And if you're a baby astrologer or an astrologer, you can usually change the calculation in software, including in software like astro.com or Astrodienst, so that you can see how yours change. Okay. So anyway, here we have a quick look at the chart, and then I will just talk about some things. So this full moon is on August the 9th. We're in a 9 year, so it's an 8 month, 9 day, 9 year. 9 is endings, 8 is infinity. It's kind of the manifestation number, but it's that bringing stability. And this is a fixed full moon. Aquarius is a fixed sign. The sun is in Leo. Leo is a fixed sign. Other things that are worth noting on this full moon particularly are that the full moon is making a T-square to Vesta and Juno in the sign of Scorpio. So we'll talk about this fixed T-square a little bit, but it's also making it's also conjunct Pallas Athena, another asteroid. So the asteroid goddesses, to quote the title of Demetra George's book, are really speaking loudly on this full moon. And so is Ceres, who is not an asteroid. Ceres is a personal planet. I explain why in my book. And Ceres in Aries is aspected by this full moon, but Ceres is in Aries, which is an initiating sign. And Ceres in Aries, just to read you what I wrote in the book. So I do a small cookbook, as they call it, of through the signs, houses, etc. Ceres in Aries nurtures through independence, bravery, and physical action. Healing the mother wound. We all have a mother wound. It's not necessarily about your mother, by the way. It can be about the mother of the state or the culture you were brought up in, or all kinds of things like that. We all have some wounds, especially in this traumatic world we live in. Involves reclaiming your right to exist boldly and assertively, physical movement, solo adventures, and initiating projects nourish your spirit. Learning to self-validate is key. So I think this is a really important part of this, because Ceres, so just to kind of draw the line, is this is the T-square, which is a tense aspect. Ceres is kind of breaking the tension of the T-square of this full moon. This is kind of the outlet, as it were, but I'll talk more about that in a minute. Other things to note are that this is 2 days before Mercury stations direct. Mercury is at its station degree. It's also 2 days before Ceres stations retrograde. She is at her station degree. So that makes some extra potent kind of release energy, because when planets are at their station point and about station, either direct or retrograde, that's when they are at a powerful point as well. That's another potency point. Okay. Other things I will mention are, we can see Uranus is here, and with Sedna. Uranus and Sedna are now at the same degree. They will not quite be conjunct before Uranus goes retrograde and moves back into Taurus for a little while, but they're at the same degree. Also, Saturn and Neptune are at the same degree, 1 degree. They've been at 1 degree for a little while, since both turned retrograde, quite close together. They're both moving back into Pisces, and Saturn's the faster moving planet. So Saturn will move off that 1 degree mark first. And then the two will come back and meet exactly next year at 0 Aries. But they're at the same degree. So we've got 1 degree, 1 degree. And this is Haumea, 1 degree. I'll talk more about that as well. But Haumea is about creation. She is the creation goddess of the Hawaiian culture. Okay. And then Mars. Mars is also at 1 degree and has moved into Libra, which is the opposite sign to its own sign. And Mars is opposing Saturn and Neptune. So I think it's important to bring all that in. Also briefly mention that Pluto is on its way back to the 1 degree mark, not quite there. But all these energies are speaking to each other again. That mini grand trine that will be even more exact next year between the big outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, is very close to exact at this point. So I'll talk a little bit more about that too. And lastly, I do want to mention that this is also 3 days before the publication of my book on August the 12th, but it's also 3 days before Venus, Jupiter, and fixed star Sirius meet, all at 14 degrees Cancer. I'm not going to talk much about that today, but know that that's a really auspicious moment, and I will do a whole separate video on that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop the share so you can get an idea of what's happening, of which planets are speaking to each other. A couple of other things to quickly note are that, we have a lot of retrogrades right now. Most of the regular planets are retrograde. Uranus is about to go retrograde. In fact, what date is Uranus going retrograde? Sorry about that. I should have looked that up. It's not far. Oh, it's September the 6th. It's not far off. But now Chiron has just turned retrograde this week as I record this. Okay, I'm recording this on the 30th, Chiron, but will have been retrograde a while before. Eris, the table turner, is also retrograde. Nessus, the book stops here, or revealer of abuses of power, is here as well, is retrograde. Asteroid Lilith, talk to the hand, is retrograde and has moved back from Pisces into Aquarius. Chariklo, Chiron's wife, Grace Spinner, is retrograde and moving towards that moon, very close to it. And she's Pallas Athena, wise justice warrior, strategy, is also retrograde. Pluto's retrograde. Pholus, cause and effect, is retrograde, posing Venus. Black Moon Lilith, I use the true one that goes back and forth, and Mercury is still retrograde. So we're very much in kind of review and reflect mode, which is why a lot of things have been coming back up, but Mercury is about to move direct. Okay, so we're not in a holding pattern at all. Things still keep moving forward. Please remember that planets are retrograde from our perspective, okay, because it's just the way of the because we use geocentric astrology, and these planets appear to go retrograde from our perspective. They do not go backwards. One other thing that I forgot, I should mention this too. There's lots of patterns in here, but the kite, all those things at 1 degree. This is an air grand trine pointing at fire. That's been active for quite a while, but that's pretty potent because Mars is activating it. And Mars is the traditional guide for Scorpio and is the guide for Aries. So I don't like the term ruler. So. All right. Tradition would have it that Mars is not happy at all in Libra, and Mars in Libra can be a little passive aggressive, but is also fighting for peace. Every placement has its highs and lows. So first, I'm going to quickly look at the numerology. This full moon is at 16. 7. 1 plus 6 is 7. So we look at the number 16 and we look at the number 7. The number 16 is outspoken, strong-willed, analytical, and about research and study. Sounds very much like Aquarius to me, actually, because Aquarius itself is a very outspoken, very sure sign generally. You have to look at your whole chart. But, it's aloof, it's clever, it's conceptual, it's very science-based, it's very humanitarian, but very innovative, very independent. And 16 has some of that energy too, okay? But this is about the higher learning. This is about pulling those pieces from out there together into your rational brain as Mercury stations direct and kind of go... It's about pattern recognition, really, which is all astrology is and all numerology is, really, pattern recognition. Anyway, so 16 is also a 7, and 7 is about obligation and responsibility to listen to your inner voice, which will always warn of danger and through dreams and things like that. And the 7 itself, I find to be probably the most spiritual of numbers. Okay, and so it's got this real intuitive voice. So Aquarius is an air sign. Leo, the opposite, is the heart, okay, ruled by the sun. So the sun is in its own sign on this full moon. And then we've got this T-square to Vesta and Juno in Scorpio, which is deep inner listening. So the 7 really is about a spiritual development, faith, spirituality, the collective consciousness. So can you see that we're tuning into all of these areas on this full moon? So we have the Aquarius, we have that more 16, that more kind of outspoken, more intellectual, more innovative kind of energy. Then we have the sun in its own sign of Leo, speaking from the heart, but that's also about rulership and leadership. And then we have Vesta and Juno, which is our sacred contracts asteroid, and Vesta is our inner flame in the sign of Scorpio, which I always think is the deepest water sign. It's the sign of secrets, manipulation, hidden things. And we've had this lineup of the goddess asteroids, and I'm including Hecate in that, in the sign of Scorpio for a while. They've all kind of gone retrograde together. They're all going, then they're moving ahead together. But whenever they're activated, this is that energy of the intuitive, or the yin or the night energy, or the feminine energy, if you want to say it, rising up. So this full moon is really about integration. You're pulling all those parts together and then taking action through Aries, through that deep healing that can come through this full moon. So it's powerful. I do want to say as well that I did mention that the moon itself, the Aquarius moon, which is quite detached emotionally, able to kind of rise above that churny inside stuff and see the bigger picture. But sometimes the Aquarius moon can also be aloof from those feelings, but not on this one. This is like got too much going on in the areas of intuition and feeling. We've got Venus, Jupiter in Cancer, right, for a start, just to meet as well. And then we've got that lineup in Scorpio, and we have Nessus in the North Node in Pisces, soon to be Saturn and Neptune as well. So, it's also, I do want to mention, Pallas Athena is conjunct the moon at 15 degrees. That's square to Vesta, that inner flame. That's asking us to bring these inner deep feelings and deep self-empowerment from what we've learned, from deep healing, maybe from releasing a lot of the trauma patterns of living in this crazy society with, its treatment of anybody that's other, and stepping up and saying, I'm taking my place boldly. Ceres in Aries, my needs matter. And then Pallas Athena next to the moon is saying, here's your strategy. We can go back over what didn't work, the strategies in the past. I mean, do you really think that some of what we've done for fighting for civil rights, for example, has worked? Or are we seeing the backlash now? We never got, in the US, we never got the ERA passed. We didn't get, various things. So we are re-examining how women's rights, for example, have tried to find equal rights, but have tried to find equal rights possibly in a very masculine, patriarchal, hierarchical society. Whereas maybe we should be moving towards creating an interconnected, more circular leadership, or whatever, a more interconnected world that connects both the yin and the yang together, and the right brain and the left brain and all those things. Anyway, there's the strategy. So but the moon is also very close to Chariclo, Chiron's wife, and she I find it really interesting that Cariclo kind of gets a little bit ignored at times, and she is very much about spinning grace, helping us to write a new story. But she has this doula energy too. She's a bit of a cosmic midwife, but she is more helping us to create this future. She is not, she kind of holds the space. She's the space holder, right, for us to bring in this new world. Okay, so she's there as well. So there's a lot going on this full moon. Those are the full moon main aspects. Now let's go to this kite of fire and air. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I do think it's significant that we've got Mars facing off to Saturn. That's the closest opposition aspect, and that is literally kind of like a face off. Okay, and Mars is in the sign of balance, harmony, peace, justice, fighting for peace, but also can be a little passive aggressive at times, facing off to Saturn, which is retrograde over there in Aries, which is bringing us some clarity about the structures we live in. And then we've got this kite pattern, which is bringing in innovative new ways and new ideas. This is starting to push us to think about new ways of doing things. Now, you guys know I'm quite political. I do those videos on Friday. I see, obviously I voted Democrat in this country because duh, what else? But I see enough wrong within both parties and the system. I see how the system has allowed this to rise. I see how the Constitution was written for white males, basically. Watch Tad Sturmer on YouTube if you want to know more about that. The founding fathers wrote it consciously to protect their interests as wealthy, often slaveholders and slave owners, sorry, and landholders. That's what it was doing. They built the system here really to protect their interests. And what we're seeing now on this period of change in the USA is people going, we see it now. We're starting to see it, at least more and more. And the those establishment, the founders, if you like, are trying to cling on with their fingernails to this power. I don't think they're going to. Hope I'm right. So I think that's all I want to say about this full moon, other than to say that really, because the two eclipses we have in September, we have a full moon first, and then we have a solar eclipse. So we have a total lunar blood red moon. So total eclipses are more powerful than regular lunar eclipses. Either way, and the blood red moons fill a lot of fear, but I don't fear them. But they are kind of bigger. The moon is fully eclipsed. The earth comes between, so the face of the moon is fully darkened out, which gives it that browny red color. And therefore, we can see that, this is a more powerful reset than when it's only partial. So because the nodes are now at 18 degrees where they will sit right through eclipse season, and this is the full moon before the eclipse, we are hurtling now into the eclipse season. Okay. So I want to read the symbols too, but before I do, I want to give you a quick reminder to please give me a like, give me a comment, subscribe, all those things. Check out my book if you haven't pre-ordered, or wait for the pre-order link on Amazon. The hardcover's there now, Kindle's there now, paperback is coming. It's been a bit of a learning curve how to self-publish. So I might put together a step-by-step and don't do this mistake thing for dummies for other people. Anyway, so I'm going to look at the Sabian symbol first. It is a watchdog standing guard. Mark Edmund Jones said that when positive, this degree is unswerving faithfulness to ideals and a real determination to achieve them. Now, you can read that both ways right here, because, the Constitution was built on a certain group's ideals, okay, of what they wanted to see, and then other people have other ideals. And Aquarius is one of those dual signs that can have that oddly conservative, kind of cold energy to it, but also has an opposing part that can be really humanitarian and really for the people of the people. So you can see that symbol could go both ways. And it says, when negative, unfriendly instincts and groundless suspicion. I'm actually just going to spend a minute on these. I want to give you James Burgess's words on this one too. So he said this is about really protecting ourselves from others. In a society too large for us to feel personally connected with everyone, which is driven mostly by materialistic pursuits, it is inevitable that we are at risk. People will intrude and attempt to take what's ours, so we put systems in place to protect and defend against this intrusion. This is no less true on the subtle planes of reality, and those who psychically are sensitive and open are vulnerable to thought projections which come from unkind people. We need to learn techniques to guard against such, energies, and visualizations of light are often employed. But basically what he's kind of saying is, that this feeling of needing to protect ourselves is really in all of us, whether it's, the tech bros trying to protect their interests and hoard more wealth, and or whether it's the people coming together protect theirs. So but there's another take on James Burgess's site that says, through discipline we come to freedom. It says, our realistic expectation that people will behave in a civilized way with probity, interesting word, is somewhat like having a guard dog. It reassures us that we are safe to enjoy greater freedom of involvement with life. But otherwise, our fearful but natural inclination is to shy away from the unknown and be suspicious and unfriendly towards strangers. This is about being an upright, honest person, not only as a path of self-realization, and I would say the rest of the chart is pulling us towards that. Note that aspect to Ceres, but also to claim a place of dignity within the context of community. We overcome our own animal fears because we feel shielded by social conventions of non-violence and decency, and we offer the same courtesy to others. We could expand on that. I could say people are realizing that, we have to self-realize ourselves to kind of get out of this mess. So lastly, John Sandbacher's symbols. Okay, so I'm going to read the Omega symbol first. He said, in the distance, a smouldering mountain. And on his blogs, John Sandbach, Sandbach, you can find him, John-Sandbach at .blogspot.com. He's got another website too, I think. But anyway, says this is about removing hatred and liberation. Helps to there's a degree angel, sorry, with every symbols, and he says this is Rael, which is about removing hatred, liberation, helps to remove obstacles and impediments and live in a universe without boundaries. And I've heard many more people kind of saying this whole system doesn't work. That's where I was going when I said, I'm a political person, and saying, perhaps it's time to think about, not having these borders and thinking about how interconnected we are, thinking about, you know, two-party system is too binary and that doesn't work, and things like that. Anyway, just examples of what I'm hearing. Anyway, John Sandbach says, there is a keenness of observation here and a vast patience. This degree is aware of powers and forces all around it and of the great potential that lies within. It senses that being at one with the forces of nature is accomplished by allowing them to work through the self. And this happens through being accepting of what is and following faithfully the subtle promptings of creative intelligence. Incidentally, Pallas Athena is called the creative intelligence asteroid, and she is conjunct the moon. Then we look at his Chandra symbol, which is an old woman drying herbs. Now this one, it says this degree is sure of what it knows and carries on its existence apart from the world, even though it may have to function in the midst of it. It's intent on making positive use of what's around it and of being as prepared as possible for any exigency. It can be purposefully stubborn and uncompromising, for it knows that in the modern world much that is old and of great value has been lost, and is desirous of insistently preserving whatever wisdom it has become the keeper of. Now, I find that really interesting because I've long said that Aquarius, this age we're moving into, is about bringing the old in, preserving what's good. For example, there's been a lot of rise in shamanic practices, just in everybody. I'm not talking about cultural appropriation. I'm talking about core shamanic practices that help you get in touch with the non-ordinary reality whilst also living in the linear reality. And this is what wave and particle is about in the quantum realms, right? We're moving more and more to recognizing that we must do both. And Aquarius has that strangeness about it as well, of preserving those old ways or rediscovering even those really ancient ways that were not perfect, but bringing them in as well in a new way into our new science, new innovations, new things like that. So it's a big, it is a big new moon, but I'm not going to go, oh, this new moon's going to, full moon is going to change everything, because it's a process. We live in cycles and process. And every step along the way is another step in this process of becoming and moving into something very different that we have never experienced before in living or history or living memory. So much love. I will see you next time.